Came here to say who won it from the jump. We came to get exactly what you want. Came here to say that you don't really want it with us. Yeah, we live, you know. We came here to say that you don't really want it with us. Yeah, the sports show.
Yeah. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Your Sports Show, episode 176. I am your host, Big Baby, a.k.a. A.R. Jones, a.k.a. the soul of R&B. I haven't done that live in a while. I feel like I'm in front of an audience again. At the bottom of the pyramid, we have the voice of Generation Pete Rosado.
I ain't got nothing to say about Bronny James. I don't want LeBron coming after me.
I'm sure you have plenty to say about Bronny James.
Damn right. You damn right.
The top right of the pyramid, we have the Queen, who, ironically, it is March and she's still on her birthday tour.
And one day removed from International Women's Day. Give it up for the Queen. International Women's Day.
Yes.
Just yesterday, March 8th. Big ups to all of our female viewership.
Yep.
Women who identifies as such and celebrates said day. Incredible Women's Day. Unfortunately, the world climate is what it is right now, but still, we here for International Women's Day.
Shout out to it being Women's History Month as well.
Yep.
Shout out to the ladies in general. Shout out to all the ladies in general. All
the ladies in the place with style and grace.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You gotta spread love to Brooklyn where, I don't know if Fat Joe or Remy Ma got any lines like that, but
I mean, listen, the one with all the lines passed away early. Pun. So
yeah. I may be like on an island alone, but I did not get the big deal about Big Pun. I was not. I liked the last couple singles, like "Don't Want to Be a Player" as well as "Be Like Pun." It's so hard, but I was like, I talented rapper, talented lyricist, but he just wasn't my cup of tea.
You know what it was? He was an incredibly talented rapper. Incredibly talented rapper and lyricist. I think obviously his weight and being able to rap the way that he rapped and keep his breath as long as he was able to do at his weight level was seen as a gimmick to a lot of people. Like, oh my God, like it was something to see. It was a sight to behold. It's like people who just are surprised that Eminem raps the way he raps because he's white, right? Like it's something you don't expect. But I think, especially in the Puerto Rican market and the Boricua market, Pun hit different at that time. But then again, you definitely all the singles you mentioned, but you definitely, probably the most iconic Pun verse of all time is that singular verse from Twins' Deep Cover 98. So to this day, there's still a lot of rappers that have trouble just getting around the multisyllabic nature of that line.
So my issue is he was a New York legend. His death made him a national legend. So that's just the thing. And Pun's video wasn't like that on MTV. He kind of was getting lost in the shuffle behind Biggie, behind Wu-Tang, behind Pac, behind Busta, behind DMX, behind Jay-Z. So
though I feel if Pun hadn't died at 28 years old, I feel like if Pun had a couple more years, things like that, I really think things could have, blown up for
you finna say that he would have taken Jay-Z's place? Because I'm finna tell you all the ways you're wrong.
I don't want to say that because Jay-Z Jay-Z reached another level himself. Like Jay-Z needed some time to kind of like evolve himself. I don't think Pun would have necessarily taken Jay-Z's spot, but I think it would have made the pool a little bit more, have a couple more sharks in it. But not necessarily
there were a lot of sharks in the pool at that time. Because you had Ja Rule, you had DMX, you still had Cash Money Records in the South. You still had the West Coast South trying to make a name for themselves. You still had Jay-Z. You still had like Wu-Tang was kind of trying to do something. You had the Rise of the Locks, the Maces, the Cameron, the this and the this and the this. I think yes, I do believe that Pun is a talented lyricist, but I do wonder if we have these things where, like Eminem, because he's a rapper that is white. People who feel like because he is a white rapper that he gets more notoriety than the content. You know, I was an Eminem. I like Eminem's music. I mean, I have not listened to an Eminem album in the better part of 20 years. But when there was a time, there was a time. Do I think that Big Pun's, you know, I do not like talking about this on March 9th because, you know, the greatest rapper of all time died today. Or my number 2, I would say, or he's my number 3 actually, but one of the greatest rappers of all time, you know, died 27 years ago. So
baby.
And his mom recently passed away. So yeah. God rest Violetta Wallace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She did a lot behind the scenes for a lot of people. Man.
I think what thing with Pun was just putting the Bronx on his shoulders, right? And when you're talking about 400 plus pound dude out here who could have essentially have been one of those undiscovered guys, like had Fat Joe and Cuban Link and them not really kind of like giving him the machinations to get where he needed to be, Pun could have been the greatest rapper from the South Bronx and nobody ever heard of. You know, but thankfully was given that platform. Another dude who died incredibly young that I feel like, you know, doesn't get talked about enough and could have been a major player in the game, even if he wouldn't have released any records, just in his writing and his lyricism. You know, we talk about another guy, Harlem dude, and Big L. I mean, Big L, just on his freestyle mixtapes alone, was murdering up the scene. You know, to a point that there's a long-standing rumor that Jay, you know, heard one of his freestyle mixtapes was like, I'm not touching this dude. Like, I can't. They wanted a young Jay-Z to kind of go one-on-one with Big L. He was like, I can't, I'm not going to do it. You know, the long-standing, you know, rumor and innuendo in the hip-hop world about that. And to think what would have happened had Big L not been tragically murdered at the age of 24, you know, because people just looking at his rhyme books and his freestyles and like what could have been for a guy like that. There are so many people, especially in the game, that died very early that I feel like could have had very long careers and really kind of maybe not supplanted people, but changed the course of how hip hop evolved over the years.
I can see that. I mean, Joe took the baton and did pretty freaking well for himself as far as representing the Bronx. And you just chomping away like a God damn it. Fat Joe took the baton and went further. Also, we have to remember that hip hop changed a bit. People weren't really listening to those fast melodies and stuff. Pun had to switch it up too, because his last song is so hard and it sounded so different from everything else that he had done previously. And to be honest with you, even though he was fat, people thought he was handsome. You know,
hence why my man had a lot of problems with infidelity with his wife.
There are a lot of problems with putting his hands on his wife too. We forget to talk about that.
You know, I knew his wife, my mother, God rest her soul. I knew his wife personally. His wife actually would babysit for me. I grew up with his son. You know, when my mother had to work nights and she didn't have a babysitter, she knew Pun's wife, and I would actually go to their house over by the back of behind where Spofford used to be, because that's where he used to live, up the hill. back behind Spofford Juvenile Detention Center. So I would spend nights there, babysit by his wife. And there were times, listen, that I slept over that home, and Pun was in the neighborhood, and Pun came home, and both of them. I will not say that Pun did not do what people have said he did, because he has done it, and I've heard it. I've never seen him put his hands on her, but I've seen things and heard things. But I definitely do know that, there were many times where she went at just as hard as him. That was a very toxic relationship for the both of them. But again, I always say, like, as a man, you need to step away from things like that and not react in certain ways.
So to jump in, and before we move forward, I do agree with a lot of what you guys said about Pun. New York rap at that time when Pun was out, it was a lot to compete with. And as you said, the names that kind of died early, Big L, Pun, and then you had the names that survived everything. You had Busta Rhymes, you had Tribe Called Quest, you had Q-Tip, you had a lot of rappers that people just don't name, that New York rappers. You had a little bit of Jadakiss and Alox just coming out.
Yep.
You had Black Rob. You had a bunch of people, of course, Biggie's, Nas, all that. You had a bunch of those that lasted the test of time, and I didn't appreciate Pun until, because he wasn't getting as much radio play as a lot of the mentioned names, because
he was getting a lot of radio play. He was doing more radio play than he was getting more radio. I'm gonna correct you right there. I'm sorry to interject, because I was getting ready to graduate high school when Pun died.
Mm-hmm.
Where Pun got most of his love was New York radio, Hot 97, Angie Martinez. 105.1 didn't exist. We only had one hip hop station.
Yeah.
We had Hot 97. You had Kiss FM, who would play hip hop sometimes, and WBLS, who would play hip hop sometimes, not often, but sometimes. But he got most of his notoriety on local New York radio and local New York TV, like the Video Music Boxes of the world and the Bobby Simmons of the world. That's where you kind of saw Pun's influence, right?
Yeah.
Now, mind you, Don't Want to Be a Player with Joe was a big hit. And it crossed over into the Z100s, the KTUs, and then that video played on MTV. That's when I remember that Big Pun was big.
Definitely. That's definitely what I was getting to. I was definitely alluding to that. Not what I was saying when
wrap it up like a condom, then.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, some people use those, right? That was a Matt joke for Matt.
I know, right? But he ain't here.
he ain't here. All in all, to pretty much say, I think he passed too early, and he would have had a long career. I still prefer Joe over Pun, but I feel like that's more of a argument for the people in that area.
I feel Joe's more of a mainstream style rapper. He can do a lot more things. Yeah. I think Pun was very much that old school lyricist, in where you tell the story, you have the fast lyrics, you can do these really cool things on the mic. I don't necessarily think Pun, I don't want to say he didn't have the ability, but I think Pun really came up in that old school, like, I'm gonna write these out, I'm gonna have this really cool wordplay. Very much like a KRS-One. Like KRS-One came up in a very specific type of environment of hip hop, where, like, even as hip hop evolved, there's something to be said with changing with the times, but there's also something to be said where it's just like, you may not have the ability to do so, and even if you did, it's not necessarily something you're going to be good at. I think Pun would have been a dude who would have been, much later on in his life, maybe a cameo guy, maybe somebody that came in as a feature, maybe somebody that came in and laid a verse down, laid a couple bars down on a track, and it really would have been something to see. I think when you see the rise of a guy like Bad Bunny, I think if Big Pun was still alive, hell, when you see,
that'd have been crazy. That'd have been crazy. A big Pun and Bad Bunny record.
Bad Bunny? Yeah, absolutely.
That would feed the whole island over there.
I think when reggaeton broke out,
oh my God,
Daddy,
it'd have been crazy.
It would have hit different.
Yeah, and I think
Bro,
that
100%. Y'all remember when 100% came out?
Yes.
All Puerto Rican.
It was
all Puerto Rican when 100%.
Everybody that summer 2000, everybody was Puerto Rican, and then they had
Everybody was
the
Puerto
Rican Day parade and start touching all them girls. That was that same year, 2000.
Yeah.
Everybody was Puerto Rican the year 2000. Everybody was Puerto Rican again from 2004 through 2009, 2010.
Yep. Yeah, my high school.
I
was Puerto Rican throughout high school.
Song "Hated to See Me Coming."
Hell, everybody was Jamaican when Sean Paul was at his hottest. Everybody was trying to be Jamaican.
Those are the years that everybody went from being Puerto Rican to being West Indian, and then they went back to being Puerto Rican, and now everybody's African because Afro beats is a thing.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
And I think that would have been Pun's lane. Like a guy like Pun really would have flourished during that high point of reggaeton. Now, like you're seeing with the J Balvins, the Bad Bunnies, all of that.
Bees.
Yeah, Pun would have come right back again. I feel like he would have been a feature guy. He would have been a dude to come in, do a feature or two, drop a couple bars, and it would have been absolutely glorious. He wouldn't really have had to do the hard work of dropping.
But we also know how hip hop legends don't get the respect that they deserve. Like I feel like you still have these guys performing for free in the park.
Yeah. 50 years of hip hop wasn't made as big of a deal as I thought it should have been. Wasn't made a big deal, but it wasn't made as much of a big deal as it should have been. Yes, Bronx is the birthplace of hip hop. New York is the birthplace of hip hop, and it should have been. I feel like it should have been touted a lot more than it was. But speaking of
hip hop, but Queens has also got to get a little bit of respect because those Bronx and Queensbridge battles in the early days of that first evolution of hip hop were really pivotal to taking it to another level and really opening up those cross borough things, which really rose to a lot of guys coming in from Harlem, a lot of people coming in from Brooklyn. And so as much as a Bronx kid, we'll always give Bronx, like you said, birthplace of hip hop. But man, if it wasn't for that Bronx Queens rivalry very early on, that a lot could have been stalled very early.
Absolutely. 100%. But speaking of things that could be stalled very early, Bronny James in the news again, but not for anything that he particularly did. Something in particular that Stephen A. Smith and other commentators and columnists and everybody who can speak about the Lakers tend to do. They spoke about Bronny and his play and how he's not ready for the NBA. And recently, at a game, Stephen A. Smith was approached by LeBron James, who basically told him, "Keep my son's name out your mouth." And Pete, and this comes from the original quote from what he said on First Take when Bronny wasn't playing the best last month. And what exactly did he say?
So back in January on First Take, there was a segment on Bronny James where essentially Stephen A. Smith said for LeBron to quote, "Stop this," and that quote, we all know that Bronny James is in the NBA because of his dad, and that's something that Stephen A. Smith has even spoken about when he's addressed the situation that happened between him and LeBron James, where he said LeBron James was talking. This wasn't a basketball player confronting me. That was a parent. That was a father. Apparently, from what we've heard from people with close knowledge of the situation, LeBron said, quote, keep my son effing out of this.
Right. But I'll let you finish your point before I give you mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have a situation where, listen, I'm not a father, but like from a father's perspective, I understand where LeBron James wanted to come and defend his son. Right. But I also go back to a quote that LeBron made before the draft, where LeBron legitimately stated, and this is a quote that you can find online, he said, "Wherever Bronny is playing, that is where you will find him," right? Which led to every single team in the NBA automatically trying to figure out, well, if we can get Bronny James, maybe LeBron will come to us, and people trying to figure out if that was the case, then to only find out that really there was, then Rich Paul coming out and saying, well, if Bron, if Bronny doesn't get drafted by a specific team without naming anybody, because that would be against CBA rules. That'd be tampering. If Bronny doesn't get drafted by the team that he wants, maybe we don't sign the contract. We don't this, which was kind of their own way of saying like, hey, LeBron wants to play with his son, yes, but he wants to play with him in LA. He wasn't a first round pick. He was a second round pick, the 55th pick overall. The guy has played 18 games for the Lakers, has been sitting in the G League most of the time. He's averaging less than 2 points a game when he does play. He's been there for all these important games, right? The first game of the year, became the first father-son duo to ever play together on the same team in the NBA. Only the other father-son duo to ever do it was Griffey Jr. and Sr., who were both at that game for opening night, by the way. Other than that, I think after that first week, Bronny was shipped down to the G League, came up for Christmas, played a couple games here and there, but like Bronny James would not have been drafted, even in the second round, had it not been for what his name was and the added caveat that LeBron was still in the league. Because even with being LeBron James' son, based on the fact that he barely showed anything at USC, granted, health problems, right? No one would have drafted him because they'd be like, oh, we'll bring you in as an undrafted free agent and hope we catch lightning in a bottle. The only reason Bronny James was drafted, second round or wherever, is because he's LeBron James' son, and many teams thought, well, if we get Bronny, we'll get LeBron. And then Rich Paul and everybody got their hands in it. From a journalistic standpoint, Stephen A. Smith has said nothing wrong about Bronny James. But as a father defending his son, I get where LeBron's coming from.
Queen.
Stephen A. Smith has taken a lot of personal shots at LeBron James over the past few years. And now that he's turned to the more conservative side of the media, his criticism has been a little more personal than usual. Okay? So when LeBron says, leave my son out of this, it's not about him criticizing Bronny's player ability. You get what I'm saying? It's him adding on the already very personal attacks that Stephen A. Smith has been showing his ass to the media since the election. You know this as well as I do. I do think it is deeper than Bronny's player ability. And yes, while I do agree that, nepotism can be at play, I would have definitely said nepotism was 100% if he would have been drafted in the first, higher. He wasn't drafted that high. Let's be real here. And LeBron saying he's going to be where his son is, what if that meant that he was going to go to any game that his son was going to be at? You get what I'm saying? Or to see his son play on the nights that he doesn't have to play. We get what it means, but come on, let's be real, right? Stephen A. Smith has a really bad habit of talking wild and crazy about people, saying, oh, check me face to face. And then when he does get checked face to face, oh, this could have been a phone call. Do not throw the rock and hide your hand. That's my problem with it. As a sports journalist, you are entitled to your opinions on the stats. If the stats are on your side, the stats are on your side, and there's nothing no one can say. But a lot of the things that he has said, most recently over the past 6 months, has taken more of a personal turn as he is preparing for more of a conservative backing. I'm just going to be completely real. What LeBron said to him was, leave my son out of this. This is basically between me and you. You get what I'm saying? Which, as a player, recently, LeBron has come in public and spoke about how the journalists have been a little bit personal. And being someone who's been in this spotlight for the better part of 22, 23 years, you do get to a point where it's like, okay, say what you want to say about me, but because you don't like me and you don't like what I'm doing, it felt more personal, because you don't see him saying that about anybody, and almost everybody is saying this. Almost everybody has said this about Bronny. And I don't think it was the criticism on Bronny. I think it's the person. I think Stephen A. Smith gets a little bit too personal. That has always been my issue with his style of journalism, as if he's ever laced up a pair of damn basketball shoes and played in the NBA, let alone be on the level as LeBron James, who's 40 years old, still playing in the league. And the reason why he's still basically playing in the league is because the league is not giving us nothing else to rely on. If LeBron could ride off into the fucking sunset, you know what I'm saying, and go with Father Time and move on, we wouldn't be in this situation. The league needs LeBron more than LeBron needs the league. He's done everything he's said that he set out to do. Is he a victim of the crimes he committed? Yes. Because this was nepotism. I would say it was, but it's not like Bronny. He's there as a minimum role player, and what people can get better. And how can he get better under this type of watchful eye too? How? Didn't this kid have heart issues a couple of years ago? The fact that he's still playing the fact that he's still playing at a competitive level is amazing, and it's not about participation trophies. It's about, hey, whatever you got between me and you, I never said nothing about you. I never come at you. But when it comes to my child, who is a child, and you know you only attacking him this hard because he's my child, you made it personal. And that's where I stand.
Yeah. So I agree. I agree with what you both said about said situations. One, people have to remember this. Bronny was a 55th pick. He wasn't picked first. He wasn't picked 30th. He wasn't picked 15th. He was picked fifth to last in the draft, right? He's also been in the G League, and people are not remembering that how he's playing in the G League is starting to reflect his play now in garbage time. He's averaging 20-something in the G League right now, right? But they're not talking about that. They're talking about what he does on the NBA floor. Get it. Got it. Good. Right?
Very biased, by the way, but
very biased. Charles Barkley said something the other day, too. I know a lot of people don't agree always with what Charles Barkley says, but I agree with him on this. Most of the media have been talking about the Lakers and the Warriors, right? And they're only talking about the Lakers right now, not because of the Luka trade, but still because of Bronny and LeBron. I feel as though that you're putting too much coverage on it, and I honestly think the media hates when Black men put their sons in positions. Yes, I'm going to go there. The reason why I'm going there is look at LeVar Ball, right? LeVar Ball, not an NBA player, right? But LeVar Ball put his sons in so much bigger of a spotlight and put them in position to succeed that people in the league were jealous. Pat Beverly basically said it himself. Oh, your father said you better than all of us in the league? Watch this. Most of the league was picking on Lonzo for that whole first year, right? LeBron learned from that, like, y'all not going to do that to my son, right? My thing about it has just been like keep it basketball, right? Matt says this all the time, especially when we're talking about Kyrie Irving. Keep it basketball. Because the moment we make it personal, you're taking it away from the sport. Now, what Peter said, again, is right. Bronny would not likely have been drafted if it wasn't for LeBron. And we get that. Tay also mentioned it was a nepotism hire. And I 100% agree. But why is nepotism good for one part and not good for everybody else? Because if everybody else had a chance to get their son in that same position, I agree. I think 100% people would do that. But Stephen A. Smith, go ahead.
I'm not going to sit here and say that I have a problem with the nepotism, because I agree 100% what you said, right? We see it all the time being done by other individuals in other spaces, and nobody's got anything to say about it, and it's supposed to be okay. But when we do it as people of color, it's a problem, right? I 100% agree, right? Listen, I'm happy that LeBron James put his son in a position to succeed. I'm happy for listen, you want to get mad at what LeVar Ball did for his kids, but you know what? He did what he did so his kids to secure their future. I don't get mad at them for it, right? LeVar Ball made himself a villain so his children could succeed. Go right ahead and do what you need to do. I had no problem with LeBron wanting to get his kid in the league. But when you essentially, as Tay said it, as the league's most powerful player, create a situation where you are basically now dictating how the thing. Well, no. I believe that, and you said that LeBron is the most powerful player in the NBA. That part, okay. I would say that LeBron is the most powerful player in the NBA because of, to the point that you made, the league needs LeBron.
Unmute yourself, Tay, because nobody heard you.
I would say because you said the league needs LeBron more than LeBron needs the league. In my definition, that makes LeBron the most powerful player in the league.
One of.
Okay, so to me,
I ain't say all that.
No. I didn't say about, I'm just saying most powerful.
How black people feel about words being put in our mouths. Then,
well, only just the most powerful player thing. I kind of put to what you said, but like the idea is you essentially, to some degree, manipulated a draft process where
I don't like that term. I don't like it. I don't like it because I still don't think.
I think
but how many teams say? How many teams will we? How many teams will talk? How many analysts, draft analysts? How many pre-draft shows and mock drafts were being spoken about? Where people were talking about, well, this team could likely draft Bronny because LeBron. And remember, LeBron opted into free agency before the draft and did not sign a new contract with the Lakers until Bronny was drafted.
I see nothing wrong with that.
Right? So you essentially create this illusion.
And I believe that if Steph Curry could have done it, I think it's because it's LeBron. You know what I'm saying? And Michael Jordan would have done it, but his sons couldn't play. Patrick Ewing would have done it, but his son couldn't do it.
I don't think Bronny can play.
One of Michael Jordan's sons is a crackhead.
A whole crackhead.
Yeah. I don't think Bronny can play. I don't think, and I'll go on record saying
complete crackhead. Like,
and now, mind you,
final form almost.
I will also go on record as completely. There we go, right there, Marcus. You know, but the greatest accomplishment that any of Jordan's sons will ever have is that he bagged, the most passed around ex-wife in the history of the NBA.
That's not an accomplishment. That's an embarrassment.
That's his biggest
accomplishment. That's his biggest accomplishment.
Right. And I will 100% sit here and say, while I have played basketball at a much lower level, I was never a great player. I was a good player. I know how to play basketball well enough. I've played in high school. I've played against college level players unsuccessfully. I did not play in college. By no means am I a guy that has anywhere near the skill level of a Bronny James. Bronny James is a million times better than me as a basketball player. But in saying all of that, I do not think that Bronny James is a productive NBA level player. I do not think Bronny James is a.
But do you watch those D League games?
I have watched some of his G League games in highlights, not fully. I've watched highlights of his G League games. I still don't think. I think Bronny James would have been given a free agent contract, an undrafted free agent contract by some team, the same way I believe Marcus Jordan was given at least one contract by somebody at one point in the NBA. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Marcus Jordan could barely get on the floor in general.
But at the end of the day, I think the same way Jello and all of them would have been given a contract by some team just to see what was there. I think a team would have brought LeBron James' son in just to see what was there. I think LeBron James' son, and I've been very open about saying this, Bronny should have stayed at USC. The only reason why Bronny came out is because I believe LeBron James, either at the end of this year or maybe next year, will be retiring. And he wanted to make sure that he had a chance to play with his son, because at the end of the day, no matter what LeBron does in the history of this game, his name will always be etched and can never be replaced as the only player for the first time ever to play with his son in an NBA game on the same team. Right? That will never be taken away. And I think that's the reason why Bronny came out. But in all honesty, I think Bronny should have stayed at USC. Bronny should have stayed at least 1 or 2 more years, honed up his game, and maybe he could have become a productive bench player for a team. I think he would have been drafted maybe even. This time, I think if it wasn't for LeBron James and his free agent status and making it seem, creating this illusion that, oh, I'll go where my son goes. You had a bunch of teams trying to figure out, yo, can we make this happen? Can we draft Bronny James and possibly get LeBron?
He also, what was also said during the draft process, Rich Paul basically came out and said it himself without really saying it. They told a few teams not to draft Bronny because LeBron wasn't going to go to those teams.
But that was after LeBron had made the initial announcement of wherever Bronny is at, I will be there. That's where
that goes to your point about manipulating the draft. That's what I was saying.
And then people started making moves.
Right. People started doing a lot of stuff for no reason, and Lakers sitting on that second round pick. Like,
now here's an interesting question, hypothetical. What would have happened if some team would have said, you know what? We don't care. We gonna take the chance. And some team with nothing to lose scooped up Bronny James.
LeBron ain't playing for no Shanghai Sharks.
No, but let's say, for example,
LeBron said he wasn't going to play for the Orlando Magic.
No, but they have something to lose. But let's say, for example, the Boston Celtics, who already had a championship level roster, who already had a championship level team.
That'd be crazy.
What if they said, you know what? We could waste the first round pick. We'll take Bronny James at the end of the first round. What would have happened?
He would have went to the Lakers anyway.
He would have found his way to the Lakers.
He was playing for the Lakers. I don't know about
it's the Lakers or the Lakers.
Carolina way. I'm leaving him with something.
At this point, I would rather him not go in the draft and
they would have traded Anthony Davis.
Been an undrafted free agent. Just sign the damn contract.
Let's be real though. Stephen A. Smith be talking buco shit. He gets too personal, and he thought he had it like that. And everybody always want to talk shit until you get confronted. Then when you get confronted, you change your tune. Like maybe no, absolutely not. Pete, I am not going to discount anything that you're saying about the draft, the process, and this. But guess what? We here now.
Yep.
We here now. Is he learning by fire?
Trial by fire like a motherfucker, for sure. For sure.
Oh, interesting breaking news out of the NFL world. Davante Adams signing a 2-year contract with the Rams. So much for Davante and Aaron Rodgers going to the same team.
I was wearing a Giants sweatshirt, and then I took that shit right off today. Because if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Giants, I don't know what I'm going to do. That'll be the perfect poetic. Given how my life tracks, that feels very on brand.
You need a quarterback, and they want a veteran.
No, we don't.
No, we don't need him.
We don't need him.
They want a veteran because of Dable and
Russell
Wilson.
You know what?
Russell Wilson.
Y'all hear? I will say this for the first time ever on the Your Sports Show. We will take Matthew Stafford before we take goddamn Aaron Rodgers.
I wanted Stafford, but he re-signed with the Rams.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what? Yeah. I don't know about all that Aaron Rodgers shit, man.
I will say this though. I think signing
Davante
Adams.
Keep that shit to you.
I think the Rams signing Davante Adams is a very big red flag that Cooper Kupp may not be returning to the Rams.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely. And because Puka Nacua came out of nowhere and took his job. Literally.
Out of nowhere.
Listen, the male Moana was out here just catching everything.
Facts. Catching everything but COVID.
Right. Maui was going crazy.
Sure. But just to wrap up the whole LeBron Stephen A. Smith shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
My biggest issue is that Stephen A. has been talking kind of reckless
forever.
You get what I'm saying? And then at some point, I think LeBron has come out recently about the media and sports and stuff like that. Granted, I don't always agree with what he's saying. As you know, I'm a big LeBron stan. I don't always agree with what he's saying. But you see how you could say everything you're saying about Bronny's player ability and this and the third, and it doesn't sound biased. It sounds legit. I may not agree that, you know, if you've seen how he's played in the G League and stuff, it is kind of baptism by fire, kind of learning the ropes and getting only that privilege because he's LeBron's son. Do I see anything wrong with it? Not necessarily. You know, do I think he could have used another year in the college sports? Absolutely, but they're making the college sports not mean anything either because they're paying. It's a whole different like process.
Yeah, it's a lot of feature
It's not
value
the
to
same. It's not this. It's not like the 90s. If you go to college, you're expected to be a student. You're expected to be there in the 2000s.
years.
You know what I'm saying? The 2000s.
Three minimum.
2000. Oh yeah, 2000. Yeah, 90s.
Yeah, 2000, not 90s. Because 90s, them motherfuckers could barely read coming out of college, let alone. I'm serious.
And then they play, and it's still 4 years in college. Still 4 years.
Yes, right. But my issue is with Stephen A. Smith is that he is getting too big for his bridges when it comes to how he's blurring the line between being a sports analyst and being a messy Wendy Williams type of sports to do stuff for clicks. But like I said, if you could say something with your chest, be prepared to be confronted about it. And, you know, and then he always dared people to come to his face and say it to his face and all stuff like that. Somebody said it to your face, and you're like, "Oh, I didn't want to have to address it, but it went viral. It should have been a phone call. These nuts."
Right.
But you know what? All that said,
he made it. We all know that this happened, but the fact that he continues to talk about it and all stuff like that, he made it too personal.
But all that being said, you know what? It secured him a $100 million 5-year contract.
Yeah, him coming out and supporting Trump did that. Him coming out and supporting Trump did that. That's what that did.
Speaking of
they got no money. They fired everybody, but they got $100 million for Stephen A. Smith.
Listen, speaking of contract extensions, Pete, jump to our next topic.
Well, you know, they say that, you know, you can't believe everything you read, but apparently you can't believe everything that you hear out of a player's mouth either. Everyone's been hearing about the Myles Garrett saga. Cleveland.
That was smooth, Pete.
That was
smooth, Pete. That was good, Pete.
Everyone's been hearing about the saga between Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett saying that he wanted a chance to win. He asked for a trade request, asked for the Cleveland Browns to trade him because he wanted to have a chance to win, have a chance to be successful. He asked for a meeting with the owner of the Browns, and the owner said, you can go speak to the GM. This is a contract issue. Myles Garrett coming out in quotes saying it's not about the money. It's about a chance to win. Bullshit. Today, Myles Garrett signed a record 4-year contract extension, which is the most ever guaranteed money for a non-quarterback in league history. $122.8 million in guaranteed money. His deal going to average $40 million a year. He is now the league's highest paid non-quarterback. So it's a 4-year deal. So he's now signed up for 6 years because he still had 2 years left on his original deal. $122.8 million in guaranteed money for a total value contract, $204.8 million with $100 million in cash over the first 3 years. That's on top of his original 2 years that were already there. And he also has a no trade clause in this contract. Now, granted, his numbers do warrant it. He's 29 years old, has 102.5 career sacks, third most before the age of 30. Third most before the age of 30, trailing only Reggie White and Jared Allen. First person ever with 14 or more sacks in 4 consecutive seasons, a streak that is currently active. And he he got this new deal after leading the NFL in tackles for loss and co-leading the league in total quarterback pressures. Also, second most sacks last year. But Was it about the winning or was it about the money?
For the love of money. Because that's all it was about. Because the Browns is a sinking ship that got hit with like 12 cannonballs. Bro, like, come on. Like, God bless Jameis Winston for trying his best.
I love me some Jameis Winston, man.
Yeah. Yeah, he has a job forever someplace. It may not be as a quarterback, but he has a
is
job.
So charismatic.
He is. Like, and it's funny, but we'll get to James Winston another time. But on Myles Garrett, take the money. I get it. And with the no trade clause, you pretty much control your future and where you want to go, which is that's what it's looking like. Why he agreed to the extension, because he didn't originally have a no trade clause. So if he's telling his owner, the GM, "Hey, trade me," bet you're going to the damn wherever you're going.
Shanghai
wherever.
Sharks,
right? Yeah. You're going to play for the London Tea Party over there. Like, we'll get you back, bag of cookies for you. It won't, like, so he has more control over his future. Plus, the guaranteed money, again, gives him more control over his future. Now, we're going back. Is it about the money? Absolutely, it's about the money. It's not about winning at this point, especially when you're playing for the Browns. But, again, he now controls his future, and we'll have to see what he does. He'll probably still ask for a trade, but now he gets to pick where he wants to go.
Big win for Clutch Sports, by the way. Clutch Sports, his representing agency. So they just win left, right, and center.
They know how to finesse.
Tay, initially when Garrett announced his trade request back on February 3rd, so it's only been a little over a month since he officially asked for a trade, he said that his goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton, the Hall of Fame. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. He said that he did not want to endure another rebuild with the Browns, who are coming off a 3-14 season and hold the number 2 overall pick this year. And as I said, he requested
hypocritical. Absolutely. You are right, Pete. I have no. You said, like I said, you had the smoothest little entrance with it. I'm not gonna. Money talks. But who else is gonna pick him up for that price tag? That wasn't a team that was already like on the come up or better. You have to think about that too. Where else would he have gone that was on the road to a championship?
I'm about to say, we could have took him.
At this point, we need to. At this point, you know what? Matt is going to be insufferable if Aaron Rodgers comes to the Giants. You know that, right?
That is the prevailing rumor right now.
Yeah, I heard that they're balls deep in the negotiations.
Yep. Apparently, because they struck out on Matthew Stafford.
What am I going to do?
Stafford. They wanted Stafford.
What am I going to do?
Well, at least you know he's not
on this
coming
show
with his wide receiver. He's not coming with Devontae Adams because Devontae is now with the Rams for a 2-year deal.
We have decent receivers in the Giants. We just didn't have a fucking quarterback. That's the thing. We had decent receivers. Now, mind you, what if he comes to New York and does well? Then I would have to sit here and be wrong for one of the first times in my life. I don't know.
But how good would that make?
You had a good run.
Here's the thing.
You had a good run.
2 things to that, Tay, right? One, the Giants are so dug in on getting a veteran quarterback because Dable and Shane need someone to win now so they can prove their worth of continued investment. Because you bring in a young quarterback, they struggle because it's a young quarterback, and then you get dropped before you get a chance to develop them. But think about how good that would look for Dable. You have Aaron Rodgers coming in, who stunk it up with the Jets, and he comes to the Giants and has a career year. It'll make Dable look like $1 million.
But Dable, but look what they gave Dable to work with. I mean, none of this is Dable's fault.
You know that. I know that. Smart fans know that. But the majority of fans for any team are led by this and not this.
But you know what? If Aaron Rodgers comes to the to the Giants, I think it's going to be time for me to move over to Detroit until Dan Campbell's no longer there. That's my de facto team.
You're going to abandon the Giants.
I'm just going to stay, and I'm just going to keep my second team will be my first team. Ravens Nation.
Yeah, I've been saying. Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear shit.
I'll go to root for Buffalo.
At that point,
yeah,
absolutely.
I need a New York team.
I need a New York team. All right, fucking Josh Allen. You know, I feel bad.
He's good.
But absolutely not. Absolutely not. But Pete, you made a couple of really good points, especially about like the Myles Garrett talk and stuff like that. So it's like, we're all in the same. There's no real debating there. Like you said, the Giants could have used him. He would have been productive. But at the end of the day, who's taking on that? If you want to win and have your legacy attached with winning, the Giants wouldn't have been it. You're only looking at maybe 4 or 5 teams. If that, you have the freaking the Lions, you have the fucking the Chiefs, you have the Ravens, and these teams are one piece away from beating the Eagles or whoever, right? It's not him, not for that price tag. So at the end of the day, his agents negotiated a hell of a deal. Now you take your money, you shut up, and you go on your mediocre ass team. That's what you wanted, right? That's what you got.
Also, by the way, another team.
Damn, I look ashy.
Another team giving out an extension. Just kind of flew under the radar a couple of days ago.
Vampire.
But the Philadelphia Eagles.
It's still winter.
This is true.
But that's when that 20-something% be coming out of my jeans, because in the winter.
Yo, stop. Stop.
Done with you.
No, I turn red. Look, I'm wiping grease on my face, and my face is turning red.
Pete, what did the Eagles do? What did the championship Eagles do?
Titletown, the Eagles, and again, this flew a bit under the radar. The Eagles gave Saquon Barkley a 2-year contract extension.
That wasn't under the radar, just under the radar for Adnan's talk. We were sitting there and talk about who doing this in the bedroom, and we could have been talking about that.
2 years, $41.2 million contract extension makes him the highest paid running back in NFL history. $36 million guaranteed at signing, meaning that his unguaranteed money is only $5.2 million. Makes him the first NFL running back getting more than $20 million a year. And he also has an ability to earn an additional $15 million in incentives and escalators such as yardage, Pro Bowls, playoff wins, making the playoffs, things like that. You can earn it up to an extra $15 million. So you go from we don't pay running backs, a team that we don't pay running backs after a certain age, to, hey, here's the richest running back contract.
Here's the bag.
Ever.
I mean, it saved the league because let me tell you something. We talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast a couple of times. We were talking about the fact that, and this was conversations we've had very early that we haven't really touched on because the league was kind of trending that way. Running backs started to become like a dying art in the league. You had one that was kind of popular for 1 or 2 years, 3 years at most, and then they'd fade off into obscurity. Everybody, because of Travis Kelce, everybody cared about the tight end position because the tight end position kind of gives you a little bit of a running back and a little bit of a receiver and a little bit of a defender. So people were riding on that wave that hard. So when there were no other real tight ends really stepping up to the plate this season, because this one was hurt, Kelce wasn't himself. What's his name again? Oh, Kittle, who's one of my favorites. That's no one was stepping up to that. So it was, and then when you see Saquon having a lights out, crazy ass year, it kind of saved what it meant to be a running back in the league at this point. So yes, get your money. Yes, I'm happy. Yes, fuck the Giants for what they did. The Giants leadership, I would say.
Yep.
They fumbled the bag, but Saquon wouldn't be in this situation with the Giants. People say, well, why didn't he do that with the Giants? Because he couldn't.
He couldn't. Every time he touched the ball in the backfield, somebody back there. So.
Yeah. He would have got paid, but he would have still been on a 2-11 team or a 1-16 team. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. What it is.
And I think he changed the narrative around running backs. So running backs are back to being important again. But we've been talking about contract extensions, and then we've also been talking about for a while people getting paid the money that they deserve to be getting paid. The WNBA, the CBA, they are going back and forth with the owners at this current moment, and the WNBA players, they feel like they should be
pay these women their fucking money, man.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, sis. No, go ahead. It's just
so at the end of the day, there was a few sites that came out last night saying that Angel Reese said, and I quote, hold on, what she said. Let me pull up the quote exactly. One of the first things, it was like Angel Reese said, we deserve more. If y'all don't give us what we want, we sitting out. Number one, that wasn't even what she said. It was clipped and reposted by a fake media site, and then it caught on as wildfire. And then everyone knew that she said something completely different. I'm hearing this, and if that's the case, this. You get what I'm saying? More, she said on her podcast, and it was more or less a hypothetical than a real statement. And then you should see the lines that came out today. Angel Reese takes on the WNBA. Angel Reese dares the WNBA not to meet her demands. What else is the other one? Angel Reese takes on Yahoo Sports over fake quotes. And the thing is, people like Angel Reese, they are hell bent on misunderstanding this woman. Hell bent. She can't have a moment of even saying that unless, without it getting misconstrued. Now, do I believe that the WNBA players should be making more money? We've said this for years and years and years on this podcast. We've said that now that women's sports have gotten starting to get that notoriety off the backs of a Caitlin Clark, off the backs of an Angel Reese, off the backs of these women, you pay them more. And the thing is, somebody has to be that advocate to step up and say we need to get paid more. You get what I'm saying? And obviously, Angel Reese is not the right skin color for her to be able to say that. And that is what these ultra conservative news sites are kind of trying to say. They clearly manipulated a quote, which I've been seeing a lot of that more recently. I'm seeing a lot of that more recently since the transition to this new administration. Am I bugging or am I right?
No, you're right. You're right, because this new administration never liked the media to begin with. They always wanted to control the media. That was one of said new administration's talking points from the last time said person was in office. So I agree with you on that.
The actual quote, just to make sure that you got most of it right. Tay, you are right. What she said, I've got to get in the meetings because I'm hearing like, quote, if y'all don't give us what we want, we sitting out. That's a possibility for real. So she didn't say we sitting out, we striking, but she's saying she's hearing that. And you know what? I'll say it straight out. I would not be opposed to them striking if they feel like they need to. You are 100% right. These women, based on what they've done, the WNBA has been around for a lot longer than a lot of people actually realize. And there are a lot of great women that have played in the WNBA that had to essentially work 2-3 damn jobs just to support themselves, even though they are professional athletes under the NBA banner, right? I'm not saying for the NBA to give them NBA money, to take money from the NBA and put it in the WNBA. But what I am saying is, you talk about wanting this product to be successful. These women have done the best that they can to make it as successful as possible with their play without having the support of the league to a degree, because you still these women are not just playing basketball. These women are fighting against, archaic, chauvinistic viewpoints, of patriarchal viewpoints of what a professional athlete should be, what a professional athlete should look like, how basketball should be played by a bunch of people who can't lace up a goddamn pair of sneakers and play basketball with these women. Right? Because, country bumpkin on their couch in fuck it all Kansas, who ain't never played a lick of basketball in their life, wants to tell women who have played basketball their entire lives how things should be done and how they should look. You got a bunch of men who don't want to watch a league where they think everybody's a lesbian. So you got problems about people's perceived sexuality. It doesn't matter. Guess what? There is a woman who, if I'm not mistaken, does identify as LGBTQ, who just retired and will go down as one of the greatest players to ever pick up a basketball, man or woman, in Diana Taurasi. Okay? Like, it just there's no...
Who else? Her and Candace Parker.
Yep. Sue Bird will go down as one of the greatest players. You want to talk about this? And he has said it publicly. The Hall of Famer, Reggie Miller, will gladly go on the record.
Yes,
and tell you that on any given day, his sister is better than him.
Yes, always. That's all we had. And before the WNBA, before we heard of like Cheryl Swoops and Lisa Leslie, all we had was Cheryl Miller. That's all we had as a girl growing up.
Listen, and I am glad that a woman like Nancy Lieberman got a chance to play for a very short period of time, because, like you said, Cheryl Miller, Nancy Lieberman, there are hundreds and thousands of women whose names will never get written in the annals of WNBA history because it didn't exist when they were out here balling. But we have an ability to have this league. This league can be great. Listen, there are a lot of women's sports that are out here that outperform men's. I'm sorry. When's the last time, that people cared more about the United States men's national soccer team more than they cared about the women's national soccer team? Because last I checked, the US
Never.
Never.
One World Cup where people got a little happy back in the mid-90s, where people got a little happy. But the women's national soccer team has been killing it. Problem is, there's a bunch of men trying to dictate a women's sport. The WNBA is exciting. I love watching women's college basketball.
Women. You just said it. Even better. Women's college basketball has outperformed men's college basketball in ratings, I believe, the last 2 or 3 years.
The biggest story in men's college basketball is something that people aren't even really talking about. How many people actually realize St. John's is on the run of a lifetime? And people ain't really talking about this. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, St. John's being this good would have been top story on every sportscast.
But you know the college basketball story that's in there right now?
Cooper Flag.
No, not just Cooper Flag. Yeah, because it's
shout
the
out
good
to
old
St.
boys.
John's. That's my alma mater, though. Red Storm, Johnny
Shout
for life, baby.
St. John's. But they're talking about Juju Watkins.
Yep.
They're talking about her. If they're talking about basketball, if it's not Cooper Flag, it's Juju Watkins.
Keomi McMillan is starting to get a little bit of a buzz, too. That's my girl.
Yep.
Shout out to Keomi.
So, yeah. So, like, they're not – they need to pay these women, right?
Yes.
You said something about –
they need child care. They need to give them help with childcare. They need to give them a salary where these women don't have to go and play overseas and have to possibly deal with what Brittany Griner had to deal with simply because she is just a black woman trying to make a living in her life, a black LGBTQ plus person. Okay, like they need to be paid. You do not see NBA players who need to, in the offseason, go play overseas in order to make their money. The last guy on an NBA bench makes enough money that he could sit back for the rest of the offseason and not lift a damn finger.
Mm-hmm.
But these women have to spend their off seasons going overseas to countries that don't have protections for them, to countries that don't care about them, to countries that will easily put them in jail or worse, put their lives in danger.
If they
And
just breathe
so
the
they
wrong
can make
way.
enough money to survive. That is not fair. These women generate millions and millions and millions of dollars for their owners. They generate millions and millions of dollars for their cities. Okay, for their arenas. Because I guarantee you, the arena where the Chicago Sky play is loving the amount of money they make when the Chicago Sky are playing.
Shoot, I give you a bit better one. The NBA or no sports league expands unless they have the money to expand. The WNBA has now 2 new teams with a possibility of 4 more teams being added. 2 of those teams being revived from WNBA's past. So in order to do that, money has to be had. You
Arena deals, sponsors.
Yep, all of that. Money has to be put someplace for these things to happen. Nobody can tell me with a straight face and sit here and be like, oh, the W is not making any money. You're full of shit and you're being sexist, honestly. The WNBA has been making money. It is not making NBA money, but the NBA right now is not making NBA money because people don't really feel like watching shit. So with the money that the NBA
all the way off,
bro, with the money that the NBA is making, right? Because if we are a parent company of something, right? Let's just say, for example, right? If we were a parent company of a different brand and that brand was struggling, right? And we had enough money to put money into a brand, we would put money into that brand to elevate it, right? Because when that comes up, when that elevates, and we all elevate, more money is made. No, we're just gonna sit there and be like, y'all good down there. No.
And they just got in July, in July of last year, the WNBA made a big deal at announcing an 11-year media rights deal that featured partnerships with Disney, Amazon Prime, and NBC Universal, the owners of Peacock. The deal, 11 years, valued at $2.2 billion, coming out to about $200 million per year, with future agreements with additional partners that could bring the league's media deal closer to $3 billion. You were getting close to $3 billion over the course of 11 years from the biggest media companies out here, and these women can't get paid.
You're just telling me that a woman, a WNBA player, cannot get a $500,000 salary. That is the end of the bench. That is the minimum, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, that's the minimum salary for a player in the NBA. You're saying that we cannot pay a woman $500,000.
And you know what the funny thing is? Salaries isn't even the number one thing that they're fighting for.
I'm sure. I know it's not.
ESPN actually did a poll of WNBA players when talking to them about what they're looking for in the next CBA. The top 2 things that WNBA players are fighting for in the next CBA are pensions for former and current players and more support for players with children. Those are the 2 biggest things that they are talking about, that they are concerned about. After that, it's practice facilities, because, by the way, the WNBA does not have dedicated practice facilities.
No, they don't.
Okay, so that's another thing. And then it's wages. To just to point it out, the maximum salary was $241,984 for players in 2024, while the minimum salary for players with 0 to 2 years of service was $64,154. I make more as a full-time educator than a WNBA player makes in a year playing basketball. And listen, I don't care what anyone says about, it's just a game. It's just a game where you pick up a ball and play. They are top tier athletes who are working at a much harder pace and doing things that I cannot do. They are specialized in their field the same way that I, as a math teacher with X amount of years of experience, can demand a certain level of salary because I am specialized in my field. These women are so extremely specialized in their field, yet they make less than I. In fact, that starting salary is less than I believe the starting salary for a New York City teacher just entering with, I believe, their master's degree.
Yeah, or coming from the teaching
Yep.
the teaching fellowship.
Yep.
I work in the airlines, right? I have people in the airlines who've worked in the airline for 10 years, maybe 5 years, who make more than a WNBA player.
I believe that teachers should make way more money anyway. I do.
Absolutely.
I
Teachers
believe
need to make way more money.
I believe educators, first responders, even police. I really do believe that they do not get paid. EMTs, police, first responders, teachers, nurses. Nurses are starting to kind of get up.
FDNY firefighters too.
Yeah,
Firefighters definitely.
Yeah. I don't believe that they get paid enough.
In New York City, I believe for the 2 years that you're in the academy and like the first 2 to 3 years of like full-time police work, you barely are making $50,000-$60,000 a year. And you're putting your life on the line every damn day in New York City, especially as a police officer. I believe in the academy. Before I went to Syracuse, I started my first couple of years after high school. I went to CUNY John Jay, which for people who are watching that don't know is like the place where most of police officers and
you haven't gone to St. John's.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so people that were in the academy, a lot of them have credit transfer programs with places like John Jay. And they talk about how when you're in the academy, you're barely making any money, but yet that can be your only full-time job.
Right.
Which is why they had a problem with a lot of young cops moonlighting as security, as private security, things like that, because they need to make money.
Exactly. But even like first responders, teachers, they do not get paid enough. I don't want to hear nothing about a 2-month vacation. I don't want to hear none of that, man. But yeah, pay these women. Pay me.
Definitely. Yes, pay the queen too. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the Your Sports Show this week. Shout out to everybody here on the Your Sports Show Network, all the shows that we have, all the shows that are currently coming up. You want to follow us, look at the bottom of our names. You have the Tavia Regina. Probably don't follow her. Probably don't. We are wrestling for Pete Rosado and the Wise Brother for myself, and Your Sports Show across all social media platforms. And Brooklyn Matt, when he got a whole bunch of stuff in his name. So, for BK Matt, for the voice of a generation, Pete Rosado, you are like a month away from doing a deed, right? For the Queen Tay, it is your boy Big Baby signing off. Peace.